Tim Tszyu successfully returned as he got a fourth round TKO stoppage over JoyceHrgovic back home in Australia. Tim Tszyu didn't have the best 2024, lost against Sebastian Fundora and got obliterated by Bakram. People were questioning him, had doubts on his name.
Well, I think he answered the doubts, you know. We wanted to see the old Tim Tszyu back, and I think we did see the old Tim Tszyu back.
JoyceHrgovic, I would say he's more of a C-rated type of fighter.
There's so many 154-pound elite fighters that Tim Tszyu could fight.
The big name he called out was Keith Thurman. And we have the return of Jaron. Ennis Bout returns against Stanionis.
He says he has unfinished business at 147, and this is the first step in it. And hopefully he's able to hunt down all the other 147 champions and finish them off quickly so he can move up to 154.
The past 2 years, he has been fighting the PR battle. A lot of people have been kind of like putting his name in the dirt.
You know, the hate on Boots is a little bit exaggerated, I feel.
Blame the fans. I mean, they're the ones who were hyping him up, and now that he isn't living up to the expectations that you guys set for him, now you guys are turning against him. Like, welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. In today's episode, we'll be going over Tim Tszyu's return with a fourth round TKO over JoyceHrgovic, as well as going over the heavyweight clash between Filip Hrgović as he defeated Joyce by unanimous decision, and giving our official predictions for the return of Boots Ennis as he looks to unify the 147 against WBA champion Stanionis. Before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. And now, diving into the episode, we'll start and kick things off with the return of Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu successfully returned as he got a fourth round TKO stoppage over JoyceHrgovic back home in Australia. Now, like we spoke about last episode, Tim Tszyu didn't have the best 2024, lost against Sebastian Fundora and got obliterated by Bakram Murtazaliev following after the loss and losing his belts, his unification belt. So Tim Tszyu had a bad 2024 and was looking to bounce back at the 154. And considering how stacked that division is, and considering how Tim Tszyu lost his last outing, people were questioning him, had doubts on his name. What are your guys' thoughts about this fight?
Well, I think he answered the doubts, you know. I think he showed good performance, you know. And we were talking about this, like, last episode. We wanted to see the old Tim Tszyu back. And I think we did see the old Tim Tszyu back. And we saw maybe even a little new wrinkle in his arsenal. He was a lot more patient this fight. A lot more patient. You know, it only lasted 4 rounds. But the first 2 rounds, he took his time, and I like to see that. And we still saw the killer instinct as well. You know, once he saw that he could get JoyceHrgovic, I mean, it was over that quickly. So I think it was a great performance, and I'm so happy to see Tim Tszyu back because, you know, he's one of my favorite fighters at 154.
Yeah, for me, you know, when we get on the podcast, I like to be a little bit objective and unbiased. But when it comes to my favorite fighter, especially, you know, Tim Tszyu, you know, I love Tim Tszyu, and I'm super ecstatic that he actually came back with the victory. He looked pretty good. He looked very good. And so, you know, as a super fan of Tim Tszyu, you know, that's kind of the few things that I was looking for, him to come back in grand fashion, to look very comfortable, you know, in that ring, and to kind of like shake off the cobwebs, shake off the doubts that a lot of people were putting that, you know, applying that pressure, or, you know, they were expecting big things, or maybe a lot of people were just kind of putting him off a little bit now, saying that, you know, maybe it's very hard for a fighter to come back from a devastating knockout like how he sustained in this previous fight.
Yeah, and I mean, you put some high standards on him last episode. You said you wanted to see a KO. Mm-hmm. Well, you got a KO in 4 rounds, you know, that quickly. So, and it was kind of a mismatch, which is good, because JoyceHrgovic isn't an A-level fighter, and Tim Tszyu is supposed to be an A-level fighter. You know, he was a unified champion, you know, a year and a half ago. So I expect to see some good skills out of him. So it was a mismatch, and you called it. A KO came.
Well, actually, even better. The corner stopped it. They threw in the towel, so even better.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing the old Tim Tszyu back. Of course, there were some new added layers into his game, like you mentioned. He was pretty patient early on, not rushing into things. The patience is what he lacked against Murtazaliev. He tried applying pressure way too early, and he paid the price for it. And it looks like that lesson, he's applying it now into this new version of Tim Tszyu. Of course, JoyceSpencer, I would say he's more of a C-rated type of fighter, nowhere near the caliber of Tim Tszyu. But this was definitely the type of performance that we should be expecting from a fighter like Tim Tszyu, who, like you said, is often categorized as an A-level fighter, especially at the 154. So Tim Tszyu did what he was supposed to do, get the knockout, get the stoppage over JoyceSpencer, and now he's looking on for bigger things. The big name he called out was Keith Thurman. I mean, Thurman and him were meant to fight back last year in March before Thurman pulled out. And one time has recently returned. He fought again in Australia. And he got an impressive stoppage win over there. And Tim Tszyu called him out, saying, "Yo, sign the contract, big boy. Sign the contract." So Tim Tszyu looks to be aiming towards one-time Thurman. Now, this is, in my opinion, an interesting fight, an interesting matchup, but it's one that, I'm not really too interested in seeing, to be honest. I see a lot of people trying to hype it up, saying, this fight was meant to be in March last year, and therefore they're pretty excited about it. But personally, for me, I don't know, man. I'm not too excited about one-time Thurman.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Tim Tszyu right now is at a weird position because he definitely wants to go back to fighting for a world title. But also, he definitely shook off some doubts, but I'm sure there's still some more in there. I'm sure I'm sure he still believes, maybe if I fight a Fundora or I fight another Murtazaliev rematch, I don't know. So I don't know if he's going to perform that well. So it was a good fight. I think he does need one more fight though before he goes up against a world champion. I'd like to see him fight, somebody else. Maybe Jesus Ramos, El Mono Ramos is there. And Ramos is, he's been doing his thing at 154, just climbing the rankings really slowly. He's close to a world title. Tim Tszyu, he should be back pretty high in the rankings after this victory. I think that's a good fight as well. Maybe if you don't want to see a Keith Thurman win, because, Keith Thurman is, his heyday was years ago, and it was at 154 as well. It wasn't even at it was at 147. It wasn't even at 154. So I could see where a Keith Thurman fight might not interest you, but if anything, I'd like to see one more fight, and Jesus Ramos is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many 154-pound contenders or elite fighters that Tim Tszyu could fight. Before he goes and fights one of the champions. But I feel like, just what you said, I feel like he needs one or two more fights before he goes and tries to fight for another world championship bout. And to be honest, there was one thing that you said last week was that Tim Tszyu and his team seem to be taking it slow. They're taking on JoyceSpencer, a beatable opponent. Now it's just, let's upgrade the level opposition. And I think, Keith Thurman is a really good opponent for Tim Tszyu at this moment in time. Just with the history that he had last year. Keith Thurman is a guy who was a world champion, and granted, his best days are way behind him, and his best days were at a lower weight class. But don't get it twisted. Keith, two-time Thurman. No, what's his name?
It's a one-time.
One-time, yeah. Keith, one-time Thurman is a dangerous guy still. You know what I'm saying? Like his last opponent was against another Australian dude. He destroyed him very easy, and so. Granted, his best days are behind him, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be dangerous. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to put his best foot forward and give a great fight to Tim Tszyu. And I think that may be a little bit dangerous fight for Tim Tszyu, especially if, I think it's a really good test to determine if Tim Tszyu is still kind of back,
Yeah. I would say that one-time Thurman is a step up compared to JoyceSpencer. If anything, I'd put Thurman at the moment as a low B level fighter.
I agree.
Better matchup for Tim Tszyu, who is looking to bounce back and make a name for himself at the 154. Also, I understand it wouldn't really make any sense right now for Tim Tszyu to take a big name fight. I mean, El Mono Ramos, active fighter, very dangerous. I don't think that's the type of matchup they look forward to. Also, I mean, you have Fundora and Xander Zayas pretty much kind of guaranteed next. You have Motazaliev perhaps against Virgil Ortiz. A lot of these champions are already kind of busy with their own types of matchups. And a lot of these other big name contenders at the 154 are looming, are waiting for their shot next. So for Tim Tszyu, I mean, I think it's best for him to actually take a one-time tournament, now that I think about it. But yes, I think it's a better matchup for him. The history they have makes sense. So it'd be nice to see that rivalry kind of be put to an end. I expect Tim Tszyu to come out, guns blazing, and to hopefully win that matchup, and to see him bounce back and continue building on the momentum that he's trying to build up now with this win over JoyceHrgovic. But yes, Tim Tszyu has officially called out one-time Thurman. Big movements for him at the 154. Where do you see him going for the rest of 2025? Do you see him just fighting one-time Thurman and then calling it a good until 2026? Or do you expect him to, let's say he beats Keith Thurman after this next fight? Do you expect to see him call out big names after that fight? Or what do you expect for the rest of 2025 for Tim Tszyu?
Well, I hope he's active. I want to see him in the ring, right away. In the summer, I want to see another fight with him. But if I were to bet, I mean, I think he's going to have one more fight in 2025, and then maybe a big fight in 2026. Like you said, I mean, the world champions, they're kind of a little busy right now. They're got some fights in the making, and like Tim Tszyu, a former unified champion, he's obviously looking for a title fight. So he's definitely going to have to wait. But I don't want him to just be outside the ring. I want to see him active. And it also gives him a chance to develop his skills. I did see a couple of people saying he still looks too robotic. He's still too stiff in his approach. And that is true. He's a stiff type of fighter, but that's his style. His style is like a counterpuncher type of. He kind of waits for you to open up, and then he tries to counter you. Or if you don't open up, then he's just gonna continue to pressure you. So I just want to see him in the ring. I want to see him, developing his skills. Getting the ring rust out, getting the confidence back, getting some KOs, getting the hype back as well. Because stepping. I mean, his reputation definitely took a toll last year. Yeah. Let's see 2025 as rebuilding and getting the name back, the confidence back, and I think that would serve him really well.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's kind of hard to answer that question because, look, it all depends on how he looks against Keith Thurman. Because I think Keith Thurman would bounce on that opportunity to fight Tim Tszyu, because if he beats Tim Tszyu, then that means it's a bigger opportunity for him. Possibly he could fight for a world title in the new weight class, or if not, get another big payday against another elite or a serious contender within the 154-pound division. And plus, that's I don't want to say it's a tricky fight or a hard fight for Tim Tszyu, but Keith Thurman, he has a mouthpiece on him. He's a smart fighter. He has a high ring IQ. Even though it's kind of, I feel like maybe a lot of people don't really see that in him, but I think he's just a dangerous fighter. Just within the before Keith Thurman pulled out of their initial fight, they were having going on lives or having little press conferences and stuff like that. I remember Sean Porter had both of them on his IG, and they were having a little bickering, a little back and forth action, and so I know Keith Thurman is going to be game. So if Tim Tszyu can't destroy Keith Thurman, then I know that maybe Tim Tszyu is not back. So it would be a very good test, and I can't really answer that question. So depending on how he does against Keith Thurman, then it would kind of give me a better conclusion or a better idea of where exactly Tim Tszyu is at within the 154-pound division. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I personally expect Tim Tszyu to beat Thurman. I expect him to win in good fashion. I mean, let's also not forget that Thurman is not a very active fighter. I mean, he's not really fought a lot since the Pacquiao. Even before the Pacquiao, I mean, he was going through a layoff as well prior to the Pacquiao fight in 2019. So he's not in. After that, he barely really fights. So I feel like he's in and out of boxing somewhat. But he is going to be game. I mean, he's a very experienced fighter. I mean, he's had great fights at the welterweight, and he was a former champion there too. So we're talking about a legitimate a veteran of the sport at this point. But no, yeah, Tim Tszyu. I mean, personally, I expect them to hopefully fight Thurman in the summer, get the win, and then probably have like a semi big name fight at the ends of 2025. I expect to see him at least a minimum 3 times this year. And if he doesn't get a big fight for 2025, he can still get 3 fights in there. I mean, there's other names at the 154 that he can that they can potentially match him up with. And I mean, Tim Tszyu has always shown that he wants to fight. He always has that warrior mentality, and I mean, I know he's itching to prove the people wrong. He's itching to get another title shot. So I know for sure him and his team are eager to get the ball rolling and to do it as quick as possible to get that big fight and get that big opportunity to perhaps get that world title shot sometime in 2026. But yeah, I expect 3 fights from him for 2025.
Yeah, it's it's a good stylistic matchup because I feel like Thurman kind of fights differently than what he used to fight at 147. He fights like very he moves a lot, like he's using a lot of angles, like he's always on his toes, and that might be interesting to see against Tim Tszyu because I mean Tszyu is the complete opposite. He is stone rigid. He is like ready to throw at any moment, but some might say he's a bit too tense. So it'd be interesting to see like with a Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman is a little free flowing. He likes to throw a lot of punches and then move around. It'd be interesting. It'd be an interesting fight, but I think I definitely still would go for Tszyu. But I hope that fight is made in the summer.
Well, we'll see whether or not Tim Tszyu takes on Thurman in the summer, and we'll see regarding his activity for the rest of 2025. But for right now, all we know for sure is that Tim Tszyu is officially back, gets his first win in over a year, and is looking to build off that win with some big fights for 2025. Now, moving on to the heavyweights. Filip Hrgović took on Joyce as a last-minute replacement. It was supposed to be Dillian Whyte against Joyce, but Dillian Whyte had to pull out. Therefore, Filip Hrgović took over and was the replacement opponent for the Juggernaut. Now, this fight took place in Manchester for the WBO International Vacant Belt. And I'm not going to lie, this fight, skill-wise, technique, atrocious. Very bad. I mean, there was literally no skill at all. But I can't lie, I was entertaining because I knew that one shot was was heavyweights. It only takes one shot. So Joyce has shown that he has that one-punch knockout. Hrgovic, also has that power with him. So they were landing some bombs on each other. So I was, on the edge of my seat at points, like just waiting to see if one of them was going to get dropped, hurt, or whatever. But regardless, Filip Hrgović got the UD win over Joyce. Joyce, man, what happened to that dude?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, he's definitely been on the downhill of his career, and low-key, I kind of feel bad for him because he was gonna fight Dillian Whyte, and Dillian Whyte is a much easier opponent than Filip Hrgović. Filip Hrgović is a good fighter. He's a good fighter. He's had some very good fights, very good. And he's come short a couple of times. But a very solid guy, one of the top 10 heavyweights. So I like Joyce. I feel bad for him. He went from Dillian Whyte to Filip Hrgović. That's an upgrade on short notice. And he did not perform, and he got beat pretty comfortably. So it was a good win for Filip Hrgović.
Yeah, very good win. To be honest, maybe Joyce. He touched on it a little bit after his fight, but I think we may be seeing the last few fights of Joyce. He's 39. He's taken, I feel like just about every time he fights elite competition, he takes a beating. He takes a couple punches, a couple decent punches. I mean, with Hrgović, he took just about every right hand that Hrgović threw. Hrgović landed. But he kept coming forward, you know, because that's the, you know, Joyce has a big heart and he has big determination to, you know, just to continue to push through and whoever his opponent is and whatnot. But yeah, with Hrgovic, he did a pretty good job. I feel like he started off pretty strong, and then towards like the middle part of the fight, he let Joyce kind of take advantage. You know, Joyce won that aggression battle. I feel like Filip was kind of like on the ropes, going rope to rope, and trying to find moments, find pockets where he could land the right hand, find moments where Joyce was a little bit slow, sluggish, and then capitalize and land that right hand. And then towards the end, I feel like he picked up the pace a little bit more, and then, you know, he got the victory. I feel like, yes, this fight was very entertaining. Such a fan-friendly type of fight. You know, they were just basically taking turns punching each other. And then, you know, Hrgovic used a little bit of his brain, a little bit of the IQ, a little bit of that defense. And, you know, he took the win kind of comfortably. And then now he's looking for bigger and better things. And looks like he wants that rematch with Daniel Dubois.
Yeah, I mean, Joyce. I mean, he was regarded as one of the best, or one of the up and coming prospects or contenders. I mean, he beat Daniel Dubois. He made him quit. Yeah, and that's where the whole quitter for Daniel Dubois was labeled. And I don't know, Joyce. I mean, he beat Daniel Dubois, and then he went off to beat Joseph Parker. Stopped Joseph Parker. I mean, he was in form. I mean, he was stopping everyone. People were saying, "Oh, the Juggernaut. He's up and coming. He's up next for a world title shot." And then he met up with the Big Bang Zhilei Zhang, and not only he stopped him twice. Yeah. So after the Zhilei Zhang fights were the moment where Joyce's career forever changed. I mean, those two fights. I mean, especially that last in the rematch, that was a brutal knockout, one of the knockouts of the year. And he hasn't been the same since. I mean, he fought. I know he was. He was washed when he fought Chisora. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a bad outing. Derek Chisora beat you, man, and Derek Chisora is also at the end of his career. Of course, I think Derek Chisora is kind of having like a little good run at the moment. I mean, he's just coming off a win against Otto Wallen, so it's a good win for him. And he's looking for supposedly an interim shot for against Usyk or Dubois, I forget who. But regardless, Derek Chisora is in good form right now. But regardless, I mean, Joyce, we're talking about a former top contender at the heavyweight division, and I mean, he's lost 4 times now out of the last 5 fights he's had. So he's in terrible form. Yeah. And 39 years old. I mean, he seems to be taking damage every single fight he's in. There's only a certain amount of, you can only advance so far in your career with his type of style. I mean, he has no defense. I mean, he walks in, he gets punched he gets connected with every single shot. People were saying, this fight was a win or lose for Joyce, and he didn't look impressive at all. I mean, Filip Hrgovic, to my opinion, neither looked impressive. Both of them were not. They were both not world champion level types of fighters that what I saw this past weekend. But Joyce was much less. And honestly, I think we might be seeing the very last glimpses of Joyce in that ring before, I don't know, something happens, retirement.
Well, yeah, that's what I think. That's the smart decision. But I don't know if, I mean, I was watching a interview after the fight with Joyce. And he was all like, a lot of people are commenting that I got CTE, or I got to be careful of CTE because all the punches that I take. He's like, I still got my wits about me. Like, so, it seems like he doesn't want to retire. And he was like, when it's time to hang up the gloves, I'll hang up the gloves. Again, very vague, saying kind of implying he still wants a couple more fights left. And, like, he's a guy that he had his run. He had his shot. And, like that run you were saying, beat Dubois, beat Parker. I mean, right there, that's you're getting your shot in the next couple of fights, and then he has that devastating loss to Zhilei Zhang. I mean, I don't think he does. I don't think he should continue fighting, or else if he does, he's not going to get a world title. If that's his goal, I think it's too much into the future. Even for Filip Hrgovic, he just won the fight, and he said, I want the Dubois rematch. He's not getting that Dubois rematch in the next fight or in the next 2 fights. So, if the winner isn't gonna get a world title shot, much less the loser in the next 2 fights. I mean, it's crazy. So Joyce, he had a lot of potential. They were saying the Juggernaut destroys everybody in its path. He doesn't have the great defense, but they do say offense is the great defense, and his offense was looking really good. I don't think it's at that level anymore. I think his dream of becoming a world champion is far away, and he should definitely retire.
I mean, yeah, for me, I was a Juggernaut fan, especially when he first kind of like turned professional, and then when he was kind of climbing up the ranks within the UK scene. There was, how could one not love him, especially with the outfits that he wore, that he wears and whatnot. The helmet, and just the attire that he's come out to sometimes. But to be honest, I think at this point in time in his career, I think he's slowly transitioning or slowly kind of turning into possibly a gatekeeper. It's like what you said. If the winner isn't going to get a champion or a fight for a world title, much less the loser. So right now he has to go back to the drawing board, or more realistically, he has to go back to the line, and wait for an opportunity. So he's 39. I don't know how much longer. I don't know if he wants to wait that long either, because it's going to take a year or two, if that, to get into the position to maybe fight for a world title shot, and then he would have to win like just about every other fight since from now on. So right now he's kind of looking like a gatekeeper for the heavyweight division. So yeah, I don't know. I think Joyce and his team really have to like take a step back and really consider and really look at the pros and cons and see where to go from here, because it's going to be a long road to get back to that elite status or that contendership status at the heavyweight.
Oh yeah, he's 39 years old. How much more can you? How much more skills or technique can you acquire at that age? I mean, come on, this fight was. I keep bringing it up, but it's true. It was technically. It wasn't pretty. I was all like, what's going on here? The way that, I don't know, the technique was not there. The skill was not there. It was entertaining, yes, but I mean, anyone who saw that fight could tell you the same thing, that these two guys aren't at that championship elite level. And low-key, I feel like that also shows you the level of the heavyweight division. I mean, the heavyweight division is not the best right now. It hasn't been the best in a while. There's some moments where it was kind of heating up, but then it kind of dies off, and these fighters aren't looking too good. I mean, Filip Hrgović for a bit was looking at as the next big thing, and then he lost against Daniel Dubois. He looked pretty bad this fight. Joyce was considered the next big thing, and then got sparked out by Zhilei Zhang. The only big names, I mean, Alexander Usyk, who's monumentally by big margin the best heavyweight on the planet. Daniel Dubois, who's made a resurgence in his career, and he's looking phenomenal.
And he's still young too, so we got a lot of potential to see.
Yeah, Daniel Dubois easily has the best potential out of all of them, and he's the current champion at the heavyweight. But anyone else, I mean, Tyson Fury already announced his retirement. Deontay Wilder's returning, but Wilder has been washed up for a while.
I did forget about that. Deontay was back, and he said he still believes he can get a title. He can become a world champion.
Well, actually, low-key, no, now that I think about it, let's say Deontay Wilder wins in his next fight. Joyce taking on Deontay Wilder, the Juggernaut taking on the Bronze Bomber. I could see that fight being a reality. I think it'd be a fun fight, especially the form that they're both in. I memean, Deontay Wilder got sparked out by Zhilei Zhang, and he also lost against Joseph Parker. Joyce has, like I mentioned, is in his last 5 fights has lost 4 of them. So it's a good matchup for both guys. They're still big names, so people are still gonna go and watch them and be tuned in.
Yeah, I'd definitely watch that fight. I think it'd be interesting. Hopefully Deontay would get the KO. I'd hope, because the defense is very low for Joyce. But I think you are forgetting one contender at the heavyweight, which is Kai Ball, right?
Oh yes,
the guy that beat Zhilei Zhang in
Caballel.
Yeah. He beat Zhilei Zhang in 5-6 rounds. So I mean, that's a guy that's he beat Zhilei Zhang, who's a top guy. I mean, he's there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean. But he's more dangerous than any of the other ones. So, I mean, there's regardless of him and maybe some exceptions, the heavyweight division in general is not that good right now. Not that good, and I'm very I'm actually not that surprised that the quality was that low, and considering how bad the heavyweight division has been in recent years. So we officially got the return, of Hrgovic. His last fight was against Daniel Dubois. That was a while ago. He lost. He got stopped in the 8th round. But yes, Joyce at this moment is probably asking questions about whether or not, am I going to get that title shot sometime? What else can I do to change? What can I do to give myself a better chance of getting that title shot? And in my honest answer to that question, I don't think he can do much. I don't think he can do much. So we might have seen one of the few last fights of Joyce, perhaps. I don't know. But it definitely was not a pretty matchup for both fighters. But moving on to this upcoming weekend, we have the return of Jaron. Ennis Boots returns against Stanionis. I keep mispronouncing his name, I feel. But Stanionis is the current WBA champion, and Boots is your IBF champion. So we have a unification at welterweight. Finally, we're getting unifications at welterweight. Last time we saw unification was the undisputed showdown between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, and that was nearly 2 years ago. So we're finally getting unifications. We're finally getting some type of movement at 147. So I'm very excited about this fight. Stanionis, I feel he's been a bit unlucky. He had Virgil Ortiz for a while, but Virgil Ortiz simply could not make 147 and kept on dying. So they had to keep rescheduling that fight there, and then it never became a reality. So Stanionis has had he had like a 2-year gap where he didn't fight because he was waiting for that Virgil Ortiz fight. He returned last year. He got the UD win, but now he's looking to finally unify against Boots Ennis. Boots is coming off a win over Karen in a rematch no one was asking for, but a rematch that happened, and a rematch that had a lot of people questioning Boots, saying, yo, is this guy even that good? People were saying that Karen got robbed, or that Boots doesn't have the power to, doesn't have that, that power that he was showing when he was coming up at 147. So there's some doubt on Boots' name. There's a lot of question marks for Stanionis. So it's a very intriguing, in my opinion, an intriguing unification bout at 147.
Yeah, it is. Boots is, he's been calling for unifications for a while now. There's the 147 division is definitely died down. We lost to Sean Porters, we lost to Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, all those guys that we remember a couple of years ago. They're all gone, right? So Boots is a new generation, and we don't really have that many good fighters at 147. So people were kind of wondering, what's Boots going to do? Is he going to stay at 147, or is he going to go up to 154? Well, he's made it clear. He says he has unfinished business at 147, and this is the first step in it. Stanionis is a solid guy, tough SOB. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not going to make it easy, but I think, the hate on Boots is a little bit exaggerated, I feel. I think Boots is a very, very good fighter. I do have high hopes for him. I think he has impressed me in a lot of performances. So I'm expecting a victory, this Saturday, and getting a unification. And hopefully, he's able to hunt down all the other 147 champions and finish them off quickly so he can move up to 154 and fight the famous Virgil Ortiz, because that fight's been teased for too long.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people want to see Boots and Virgil Ortiz, and I think that's the fight that a lot of people want to see, within the next coming years or the next coming fights for Boots. But he has to get past Stanionis, and Stanionis, he is the only Lithuanian world champion in boxing history, right? So with that, that gives a lot of confidence to Stanionis, but I feel like Boots has a lot of pressure on him. A lot of expectations are, need to be met, because if I'm going to be honest, if we look at the other champions at 147, it's those two guys this Saturday. Those are the two top dogs at the moment in time. So, Boots needs to beat Stanionis in order to become a unified world champion, and then he's easily going to be able to beat the next two other guys within that division.
Whoa. Are you really talking down on Brian Norman Jr.? Come on now. He became a world champion. You remember his world champion fight? You know how good that was? Oh wait, I don't think he had a world champion fight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got the email champion.
I mean, to be fair, they kind of all did because Terrence Crawford, he just left the belts there, and the sanctioning bodies just gave it to somebody.
Yeah, it's so funny how in the recent years that's how people become world champions now, right? Yeah, they just get an email saying congratulations within the subject line.
You've been elevated. You've been upgraded.
You've been upgraded. Yeah, so I mean, dude, it's gonna be a tough fight because Stanionis is a tough guy. He's a guy that goes forward. He's a guy that has power. He's a guy that has a really good chin, and he's a guy who's a fucking warrior. He's a guy who has a big heart and big determination. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talks about what's next or what's next after this fight, but Boots needs to beat this guy. And if he doesn't beat this guy, or if he looks mediocre, or if he looks okay, well, then there's going to be a lot of doubt on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, not even against Karen, but against Avanesian, they're already giving Boots a lot of stick for it. He's been heavily criticized a lot within these past few fights that he's had. And I mean, if he doesn't look as impressive as he normally does against Stanionis, people are going to keep bashing him. There's a lot of bad, rep for his name right now. The whole Virgil Ortiz, after the Karen fight, he was all like, maybe 147 is not my weight. Maybe it's time to go. So, I mean, when you say stuff like that, your people are going to start judging you based on those words. And then there's the whole Virgil and Boots fight at 154, and that got a lot of people excited. And then turns out Boots and his team were like, no, we're staying at 147. We didn't know about Boots himself said he didn't know about the whole talks and negotiations, and so then that gave him a lot more bad rep, a lot more stick from the fans, and they were calling him a duck, this and that. And yeah, these past few couple months for Boots have been a bit tough. He's been harshly criticized, and I think it has been a bit exaggerated. But yeah, he definitely has more pressure, I feel, than he normally does for this fight. I mean, unification fight. He said he wants to go undisputed at 147, and the first guy he's taken is, in my opinion, the second best champion at 147. So it's gonna be a tough fight. I think it should be a good matchup between the two fighters. But I am expecting Boots to perform and to become a unified champion at 147. I think he has just way too much hype to his name, way too much. There's way too much on. He has too many cards in the game in order for him to lose. Because if he loses this fight, then no one's gonna want to see him fight Virgil. I mean, they're gonna be like, okay, you can't even beat Stanionis, and you think you can go up to 154 and beat Virgil Ortiz, the man who's currently one of the best fighters at that division? Like, there's no way, man. So Boots has to perform very well this weekend, and he has to get that win, and he has to do it in grand fashion in order to get the reputation back, to get the credibility amongst the fans. So I'm expecting Boots Ennis to get the good win.
I think so too. I mean, like, listen, he's a really good fighter, man, and he's a fighter that has kind of a lot of styles. You can't really pin down, he's this type of fighter or he's this type of fighter, because he can really do it all. I mean, he's a switch fighter, so he can fight orthodox and he can fight southpaw. He can go forward and like bully you, literally like bulldoze over you, or he can outbox you and fight on the outside and keep on turning you, pivoting you. So that's why I think he's gonna win. He just has too much in his arsenal, man. Like, he's just too much of a complete fighter. Whereas Stanionis, he's a one. He's what he's gonna do. He's good at doing what he does. He goes forward, throws a lot of punches, strong. So he's a tough guy. You're not just gonna walk over him. But it's a simple. It's simple. I feel like Boots has too many things in his arsenal to combat that. That's why I'm leaning heavily towards him.
Heavily. Okay. Yeah, for me, look, I want to say the needle for me is going a little bit towards Jaron and Ennis. But I mean, he's a tough guy, his opponent. He's a tough guy, so it's going to be really interesting to see. And, Jaron Ennis, the past 2 years, he has been fighting the PR battle, right? A lot of people have been kind of like putting his name in the dirt. They've been doubting him. And so all he needs to do is just perform well, box well, show his ring IQ. And I think with just that alone, he should be able to beat Stanionis. But yeah, so that's my prediction.
Well, I mean, also like okay, like the fans are the ones bashing Boots, but those same fans were the same ones who were hyping them up when he was coming up, saying, "Oh, I think he's good enough to beat Terrence Crawford." Terrence Crawford, that whole matchup. Who would win, Boots or Terrence Crawford? I mean, who came up with that matchup? The fans. They were the ones calling it, saying, "Oh, Boots has the skills to beat Terrence Crawford." Yada 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 yada. Right? So, I mean, Boots himself also ate up the claims and stuff. I mean, but he was showcasing it in the ring, and I mean, once they started stepping him up a little bit, I mean, he didn't look as impressive, or maybe to the standards that people had for him. He wasn't living up to it. Hence why people started coming at him, and then the whole Virgil backing out Duck allegations absolutely was kind of like the final stone for him. So yeah, I mean, I'm just saying the fans have played a critical role in the way that Jaron Ennis has been treated recently. So if you're gonna look for someone to blame the fans. I mean, they're the ones who were hyping them up, and now that he isn't living up to the expectations that you guys set for him, now you guys are turning against him. Like, what's going on here?
That's what the fans be doing, bro. They just be flip flopping. You know, they're on one guy for like a year, and then he does something maybe like a mediocre performance, and he's like, "Oh, he's absolutely garbage." So you know that's the fans type of problem, and that's only the fans that say that as well. I mean, real boxers. They see the skill of Boots Ennis. I mean, Boots Ennis, he's a top guy, top skill fighter, very high ring IQ. You know, he can do it all. That's why I'm sold on him. You know, I'm not into this fan hype. You know that right now currently they're saying, you know, he's a little too, he's not as good as they think he is. I think he is as good as they think he is. I think Boots Ennis is that guy at 147. You could definitely go undisputed if all the other champions are willing to fight him, and then move up to 154.
Well, I mean, let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys not believe that there may be some truth to that? You know, what the fans are saying about the criticism towards Boots? You know, I mean, Boots, you know, his last outing wasn't the best. And the one before that, it was against another guy who, you know, wasn't the cream of the crop, wasn't an A-level fighter. You know, Eimantas, tough guy. But, I mean, nowhere near the level as, like, Stanionis, Brian Norman Jr., you know, Mario Barrios is up there now. You know, he's had that experience. He's gone against elite level competition, and now he's a world champion now. You know, is there some truth to what the fans are saying about Boots?
Well, I mean, first up, the criticism started when he fought Eimantas, because before Eimantas, he did Roman Villa, and he looked phenomenal.
Beat the shit out of that guy, man. Oh my gosh.
He looked phenomenal. Then he fought David Eimantas, and people came out saying, "Yo, he got hit a little too much, this and that. Yes, he got the stoppage, but he took more damage than he normally does." But I'm like, bro, he was doing that. He purposely fought that way in order to entertain his home crowd. So I didn't give him any criticism for that at all. I was like, bro, he literally fought that way because he wanted to showcase in his hometown. Yes, he got hit a bit more, but he still got the stoppage win. He still looked impressive in my opinion. So I mean, I didn't understand the criticism there. And then he fought Karen for the rematch, and that's when when the critique started boosting up, because I mean the whole Brian Norman and Boots fight fell through. I mean, Norman during that time was getting absolutely bashed, and then they're like, okay, so who are we getting for Boots as his opponent? And then we get the rematch was him and Karen. Like no one wanted that fight. So then that's where the critique started ramping up again. Didn't look too impressive against Karen. It was pretty competitive in general, but I mean, Karen is a fucking tough, man. You're simply gonna go against the fighter who's gonna be tough. Yes, you might be better than them, a higher level, but they're not gonna be easy to put away, man. And Karen is simply that opponent for Boots. I mean, Boots was able to catch him. He hurt him. He dropped him even. But Karen is tough, man, and he was able to get good shots on Boots. There's moments where I felt Boots was, slightly buzzed in there, and it wasn't the best outing. And I think another big thing that also, put more flames or put more gasoline into the fire was the way that Boots conducted himself in the post-fight interview, saying, "Oh, like maybe my time is gone here at 147. Maybe it's time to go up." I mean, you don't say stuff like that, and it shows that you were frustrated in that matchup, which it was a hard competitive fight. But you can't be saying stuff like that because then people are going to turn it against you. And Virgil Ortiz happened, the whole breakdown in negotiations. Oh, I never knew that. I never knew they were having negotiations. Like, I was never part of it. I mean, that's where it all stemmed from. So I think the hype is a bit unwarranted. He did add some gasoline into the flame here now and then. But I think overall, I think it's a bit over the top from the fans. And I hope that this weekend he's able to showcase, the hype that he is a great fighter. He's a well-rounded fighter who can do a little of everything, and that he is definitely one of the more skillful fighters in the sport today.
Yeah, he definitely is, and that's where the hype comes from. If you were one of those guys that when Boots was coming up, you were saying, "Oh, he beats Terrence Crawford. Oh, he's the next big thing." Yeah, you were going to be disappointed after these couple of fights, but it's because that was not reality. Boots. I don't think Boots would have beat Crawford at 147. But he was still a great fighter. That's nothing to take away from Boots. He just wasn't on Terrence Crawford's level. They were talking about Boots like he was a god, like he was the next Floyd Mayweather, that he was the next guy that was going to take over the sport of boxing, and that's why when you see these type of performances, you think to yourself, oh, never mind, Boots isn't like that. It's like, no, he always was like that, but he just wasn't to your standard. You were setting the standard so unrealistically that you were obviously it was going to come crashing down on you. That doesn't mean Boots isn't still that guy and isn't still the top dog at 147, because that much is true. But it just depends on these type of fans, because when they see a fighter up and coming and they're like, They buy their ticket. They're like, oh yeah, he's the guy that's gonna become the next champion, and he did, but he wasn't the next Mayweather. He wasn't the next number one pound for pound fighter. At least not yet. At least we haven't seen that. So it just depends on your casual level. I feel like the casuals are just going crazy on Boots, but it was never like that with Boots. He obviously had great skills, but he was never gonna beat like a Terrence Crawford or anything.
Let's see what Boots Ennis is able to do this upcoming weekend. Official prediction for myself: I'm expecting him to win. Scorecard: I think it's going to be a competitive fight, yes, but I do see Ennis winning the fight. I think the second half of the fight, or maybe even the last third of the fight, will determine the winner. And I think Jaron Ennis will become a unified champion this weekend. And hopefully he can take out Brian Norman, he can take out Mario Barrios and become undisputed, because I do really want to see him go up to 154 and see how he does in that mix, especially since the 154 is the best division in boxing. So that's my official prediction: a Jaron Ennis win this weekend.
Yeah, for me, I'm also going to go with Boots, but I'm going to say that it's going to be a very difficult fight, and I think it's going to be a harder fight than his previous outing. Because Stanionis is a guy who is just a tough guy. He's super durable. He can take a punch and he can give a punch, and it's going to give Boots trouble here and there, but I think ultimately he should be able to surpass that and then look for better things.
Yeah, I agree. I think Boots is going to win unanimous decision. It's going to be competitive though, but I mean, it's going to be clear, I think, that he's the winner.
So those are our official predictions for this weekend's welterweight unification between Stanionis. Gosh,
it's like Stan, like the Eminem song.
Oh yeah, Stanionis against Jaron Boots Ennis. Now unification. Let us know down below. Do you guys think that Boots, the hype is back? Will be back if he's able to beat Stanionis, or do you think that Stanionis might pull off the upset and himself might become the unified champion at 147? Also, let us know about the heavyweight division. Do you think it's one of the worst divisions in boxing? What do you think about Filip Hrgović? Do you think that Joyce should continue fighting? Also, let us know about the return of Tim Tszyu. Were you guys impressed by his outing? And who do you expect to see next to take on the Australian King? But this was, I can't end it yet, man. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all forms of social media. We are on X, TikTok, and Instagram. Lastly, we have a Discord. We're trying to build up a server, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. But this was Pablo, and I was Rudo and Asa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.